This episode is brought to you by Redfin. You're listening to a podcast, which means you're probably multitasking. Maybe even scrolling home listings on Redfin, saving homes without expecting to get them. But Redfin isn't just built for endless browsing. It's built to help you find and own a home. With agents who close twice as many deals, when you find the one, you've got a real shot at getting it. Get started at redfin.com. Own the dream.
Metalheads, sharpen your horns. Every Monday, Metal Mondays from Metal Blade Records storms onto bravewords.com with a brand new interactive audio trivia battle. Test your metal knowledge, crush the questions, climb the leaderboard, win prizes, earn bragging rights loud enough to rattle the crypt. Think you know Slayer, Cannibal Corpse, Gore, Merciful Fate, and the deep cuts hiding in the Metal Blade vault? Then prove it. Head to bravewords.com every Monday and play Metal Mondays. Say it loud, score it high, rule the leaderboard. Metal Mondays, now on bravewords.com.
Hey, this is Nathan James from Inglorious, and you're listening to Jay Scott, the Hook Rocks podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Hook Rocks. I'm your host, Jay Scott. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're getting ready for the weekend. It is upon us. It is here, and we've got a great new episode for you today. Before we get into it, I just wanted to mention that we are part of the Pantheon Podcast Network, a great family of music-related podcasts. You can check out all the old and new Hook Rocks podcast on pantheonpodcast.com, as well as wherever you get your podcasts, whether it's Apple, whether it's Spotify or Amazon. We're on every platform for you to listen. And you can also check out some other great podcasts too as well on Pantheon, such as Carmen Apiece and Vinny Appice, the Hangin' and Bangin' podcast, Shout Out Loudcast with Tom and Zeus, Mistress Carrie, and many others. Don't forget to set your app to automatic download so you get all the latest and greatest Hook Rocks podcast episodes. And enjoy our latest episodes, such as the last episode we just did was about Teen Cancer America, the Roger Daltrey and Pete Townsend sponsored charity, the Real Me podcast. And then, of course, earlier this week, we welcomed Phil Lewis from LA Guns to talk about their new album, Checkered Past. You want to pick that up, too, as well when that comes out, or it is out here, November 12th, this Friday. Next guest, I'd like to welcome in another great new music spotlight. Looking forward to doing this here now for the past few days. It is Weed, and the band is called the OddEven. What's going on, man? How are you?
Hey, I'm good, man. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you doing this, man. Thank you very much. Hope you're having a good day. Welcome aboard to the Hook Rocks.
Absolutely.
We always start the same way every time we have a first-time guest. It is the essence of the show. It's what we're all about. Just like every great rock song has a hook that sucks you in, Every rock fan has a moment, whether it's a song, an album, a band, or performance, that hooked them on rock and roll. What was it for you?
Oh my God, we're going to the Wayback Machine. So, story goes, my brother, who's 18 months younger than me, was playing guitar at a pretty early age. And when I got to the my early teens, I would pick up his guitar and plug it in and bang on it. Didn't know anything I was doing. He'd run and tell my parents that I was being an ass and messing up his guitar. And I finally talked him into going to get me a guitar, rented one. I went into the store and I said, I said, the guitars are cool, but I really like that one over there. And the guy said, well, that's not a guitar, that's a bass. He said, why do you want that? I said, that looks like the thing that Nikki Sixx plays. And it was a BC Rich Warlock, and I was kind of hooked with the whole Motley Crue thing back then.
I remember that Warlock. The first time I saw that was when they did the US Festival. And
yeah, that's exactly right.
It was white, I think it was, right?
I think it was black, actually, at that show.
Black?
But he had a white and a black one. The white one looked, over the years, got a little bit more beat up and had some blood and all that craziness on it as the months went by. But yeah, just a really striking instrument. I remember looking at that going, man, that thing is bad. Whatever that is, I want to play that.
No, that's a really cool story. So where did it go from there after you got the Warlock? What other influences did you have when playing bass?
So, I mean, I was obviously, a big fan of coming up. I think what I really liked always was, the hard rock feel. So, I mean, totally dug Zeppelin, Sabbath, got into the 80s, kind of the hair metal thing, really, really dug that a lot. And then just, if I kind of look at the whole rock and roll side of things, it's always been something with an edge, something that was cool. In the 90s, got into the alternative stuff, really dug stuff like Jane's Addiction, Rage Against the Machine, certainly like Pearl Jam, all the big boys, Alice in Chains, Soundgarden. And then if you keep going, through the new metal stuff, people like, Saliva, definitely dig Nonpoint, and fortunately I've had a chance to play with some of these great bands. And it's just been a great ride. I mean, anything that comes out that's cool, I'm all about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. When did it become the moment that you wanted to get up on stage? When did it become from playing in your room and doing all that to be playing in front of a crowd of people and being in a band?
I think that was actually first. Like I didn't really care about being good. I was kind of put me on stage. Let's see what happens. And kind of funny. My first gig was actually in this tiny little town right outside of DC, a place called Garrett Park, and they put us on at a 4th of July festival. And I used to race BMX all over the country, and my first band was comprised of all guys that raced BMX, and a couple of them were decent. The drummer was good, and the guitar player was good. They've been playing for a while, but I could barely play the 10 songs we played, and I think we're too loud and too whatever, and the town council actually had a meeting, and I was banned from playing within the corporate limits, and I think that was it. I was like, man, that's exactly what rock and roll is all about. I already got banned from somewhere on my first show, so I was all in at that point.
So you specifically got banned, not the rest of the band, just you.
No, everyone did, but
okay, I was like, that's even more badass. Like, you're the only one that got banned.
Yeah, no, I was the local tie to that town, and knew some of the people there and stuff. And so, I certainly went down the hardest as it would be, but as the story goes, it was we'll have no more of Weed playing within in the town limits. So it was a great way to start things off.
That's great. That's a great story. So how did you how did OddEven become a band? Where was the start with you guys?
Yeah, so my guitar player E.T. and I have been playing together for years now. He wasn't all the way back in those first bands, but believe it or not, there is a tie-in. That guitar player that I was just referencing a minute ago, Scott Lowe, went to school with E.T., and we joined a band, I don't know, probably 2 or 3 years later. And we've probably played over the years, and I don't even know, 10 different bands, 12 different bands, whatever it might be. And we had, parted ways for a while. I was playing with a funk groove band called Papa Shake, and he was doing some reggae stuff. He was down in the Caribbean for a while. And when he came back, we just started talking about, writing and getting back to, our rock and roll roots and stuff. We joined another hard rock band for, I guess it was about a year. And we went out and, did some road dates and stuff with them. And we started writing a whole lot of the songs, and we just decided to break off. And at that time we were kind of talking about, concept and direction and all kinds of stuff. And, we sort of knew where we wanted to be with the hard rock sound. And, I was adopted at the time. My wife had recommended that I go to Ancestry DNA just to see, what, if there was anything there as far as, preconditions for health and all that stuff, since I didn't know, my actual parents. And, I actually spit in the vial 3 different times and came back with no results. And so E.T. said to me, he said, wow, that's really OddEven. And the name kind of stuck. And then, sort of somewhere along that same time, we said, well, if you don't have any human DNA, they can't get a read, you must be an alien. And we just kind of went with the OddEven and alien theme. And here we are.
Like an episode of the X-Files.
That's right. I mean, I was actually a little bit concerned. I was like, why aren't they getting any reads? But, hey, I'll take the alien thing. It's kind of fun. So it's all good.
Great. So as the band formed and the band started to move forward, you guys settled on the theme of the band and the direction. As far as the collaborative process, how is that for you guys?
Well, it continues to evolve. I mean, E.T. and I write a lot of the songs. We come up with the main riffs. Rob Wise, our singer, he always contributes, to the lyrical structure and the melodies and all that. But it normally starts with, some type of idea. I think we've probably got, I don't know, somewhere between 90 and 120 songs that are almost ready to go, which are, just riffs that get developed. It can be, a riff or a song idea or a melody or whatever it might be. And the beauty of writing music in 2021 is that, it's very easy to share ideas. It's not like in the past where, well, I got to wait till we get to band practice or get to the studio to get this stuff to the other guys. You say, hey, look, here's an idea at 12 noon, and by 12:30 you can get thumbs up or thumbs down or, additions to the song, whatever it might be from the other guys just by sharing files. So all that stuff's really cool. I mean, as far as, how we've evolved, when we first got together, we started booking shows like right away. And I think we were together for maybe it was like 4 weeks, maybe. And we had a show booked with Faster Pussycat and Bang Tango. And so we were kind of scrambling to, kind of finish these songs and get them ready to go. We did that, and we went out and did some shows on the road with Nonpoint and Soulfly. And we played with the guys in Last in Line, the Dio guys. And, after that, it was, hey, let's go into the studio and record. And we did the first record, Space Juice. And we had a date slated for April of 2020, and the whole world fell apart. So, a lot of our plans for going out and doing things on the road and stuff certainly changed, and it allowed us to continue to write and develop. And what you see from the pandemic is what you got on Dance to the Dead record.
How difficult was that, to have an album that's been worked on and released, and all of a sudden, the outside world just kind of goes to shit, and you're kind of stuck. You can't really tour because nothing's open. You can't really do anything. How did that affect the creative process for this album?
Yeah, I think the hardest thing was just keeping the pedal to the metal. It's very easy to go, what are we doing this for? What's out there? And a couple things happened during the pandemic, which I'm very proud of, actually, is that, we were able to keep it together. We were able to, share files if we didn't get together in person. When this thing was at its height, we're all in our recording space going, is this space big enough? Does that guy have COVID? Are we all going to die? And we're kind of standing in the corners with our masks on, you know, as far away as we possibly could be. And, you know, everyone's looking at that microphone. Did he sing in that microphone last? I'm not touching that thing, and all this weirdness. And, you know, we really persevered. And, you know, like I said, I'm very proud of the fact that we kept it together and we're able to be very creative and very productive during that time and come out swinging on the other side. The other thing that really helped us out is we started, you know, reaching out to different areas and different connections that we had and said, you know, what can we do to take this to the next level? And so from that first record, you know, we're sitting on this brand new record. We got nowhere to go play it. We're getting shows canceled left and right, and they're being postponed. And we started talking to the guys at Pavement, and they said, hey, well, let's talk about marketing this. Let's get this, you know, we really like some of these songs. Let's get this out and get this on the radio. And they got it on the charts and started getting this buzz going, which was great because, you know, as we were working on that next record, they said, hey, look, you know, we really dig what's going on here. Let's talk about putting this actually on the Pavement label, which, you know, we signed a deal with those guys and did that and, you know, came out swinging on the other side. So it was certainly difficult, but man, we got a lot done, you know, during the time that could have been just, you know, sitting around going, oh man, that's really depressing. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. How did this experience, I mean, you guys were making music before, obviously with Space Juice in 2020, you know, Dance of the Dead, you start working on this album. Like we talked about, there's so much going on outside in reality, whether it's COVID, whether it's the toxic election, whether it's protests, there's a whole bunch of stuff happening. How did that affect the tone of your music, or did it at all?
I don't know. I mean, maybe somewhat. I think it made us more just like hungry to, you know, get to the end of the tunnel. But sort of the theme of that kind of goes back to the first record, Space Juice, is sort of, you know, stand up and fight for yourself and you know, do something out there, be positive, be productive. And then this record is kind of maybe more reflective. It's, you know, I guess it kind of goes back to some of those tones of like, what are we doing here? You know, am I alone? What's next? And it all ties into that whole alien theme. You know, are we the only things here? Well, you know, none of us think that we are in the band. And so we write about it and sort of, you know, what forces are pulling at you negatively or positively. And those are some of the themes that are very prevalent on the record.
That's so interesting because I think a lot of artists and I think a lot of bands are afraid to tackle those types of subjects in the way that you guys do. You know, being reflective, having that philosophical theme or the deep, you know, rooted, you know, defining, you know, thoughts that you question and where you're headed. That's really tough to incorporate and have it resonate with people. And with your music, it definitely does, which is, you know, a big kudos to you guys that you're able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I wouldn't say it's surprising, but it's worked really well for us, and it's a release, and it's you know, it fuels our creative juices as it would be, and yeah, we've really kind of dug what we're doing. I mean, a whole lot. As I mentioned before, you know, until a few years ago, we weren't playing hard rock, and it's great to come back to that whole, you know, kind of what we came up on, and then really have a direction and a purpose for what we're doing, where we're going.
Do you feel that, you know, this being the core defining sound of OddEven, do you feel like there's limitless possibilities, or do you feel that maybe perhaps that you may be stuck in this type of music if you're not evolving? How do you feel about that?
I don't know. I mean, we're going to try to stay true to the hard rock thing, but we've got so many other influences that, you know, I can see it going in a number of different directions. You know, I mean, it's no surprise when people compare us to, you know, say, hey, you guys kind of sound like Alice in Chains. And I'm always like, you're not hurting my feelings at all. You know, I'm like, hey, that's one of the greatest bands of all time. That's great. But I think it's kind of, you know, hey, whatever we feel like doing, if it works, let's do it. There's some different sounds on the new record, and it still sounds like the OddEven. So I'm okay with that. You know, I don't think we're going to go, you know, way off the scale and start trying to do something like, some crazy funk disco album or something like that. But at the same time, I mean, we've all been around the block a bunch, and if it makes sense and it fits and it feels good, then I think we're, pretty open with saying, let's do it. There's a little bit of an evolution from Space Juice to Dance of the Dead. And one of the cool things on this last tour when we were out, I told you we've got a catalog of songs ready for the next record. We were sneaking a song or two in here or there, and it was great. The audience response all over the country was really cool, and even cooler than that was, the guys in A Demon Flaw who we're on the road with were coming over and going, man, hey, what was that new song? You guys haven't played that one yet. And they're like, man, I love that song. And so we'd stick it in the set the next night or whatever it was. And so yeah, man, I think it's kind of limitless. But we're going to stay the course and see where it goes.
When you mentioned that people compare you to Alice in Chains, and it seems like you guys embrace it, is it important to embrace that, the definition of who you guys are, instead of like some bands try to run away from being compared to an artist from the past? Is that important for you guys to embrace it and acknowledge it and still be who you are?
I mean, that's what humans do. I mean, people try to categorize things. So, hey, if somebody wants to tag us with one of the greatest bands or one of the bands that we like the most, that's fine. I mean, we're not striving to be Alice in Chains, but hey, I'll take that comparison any day. I mean, if you see a beautiful girl or a car you like or whatever, and somebody all thinks that's great, and you're shooting for that, then who cares? I mean, it is what it is. You just compared me to something wonderful and great and perfect. I mean, yeah. So I mean, we're not looking for it, but believe me, there could be worse things to be compared to than Alice in Chains. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. It is, I always do it too. I'm always trying to get people involved or interested in new rock, new bands. And it's kind of human nature, but like, you're right. We always do it. We compare today's artists with what people may like. Like, oh, hey, you like AC/DC. You should check out this band. Oh, yeah, you like Alice in Chains. You should check out this band. I know some artists may not like that, but let's face it. Rock and roll is experiencing a resurgence right now, but for a long time, it was taking a back seat to other genres. And it still kind of is in a way, but I do feel that, in my opinion, rock and roll is more popular now than it's been in the last 15 years.
Right. Yeah, I think it's definitely coming back. I'm with you.
Yeah, and it's a great, and I think, and I mention this a lot, my listeners have heard this before from me, and me having a 16-year-old son keeps me close to what people his age are listening to, because I love the new bands. I love, the bands I grew up with, but he said something really interesting that, kids who may have gone into the pandemic listening to pop music or rap music, when you're at home and you're e-learning and you're doing the same things every day, you start to look for change. You start to look for something different. And also, because you're 16 years old and you're doing the same things, it's also a lot of angst that's created. Well, what's a better recipe for rock and roll than angst and a young kid wanting something different? So
yeah, I completely agree. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think with a band like yourselves and what you guys are doing, I think right now is the best time to be in a rock band, because it's really starting to surge. You're seeing some of these artists get on, Billboard charts and starting to chart and be on these tours, and these tours are selling very good. So I think it's way better than it was in 2019 prior to the pandemic. And I think a lot of the resurgence is because of the angst of a teenager saying, I'm tired of this pop music. I'm tired of this rap music. I need something different. What's speaking to me right now? And I think rock and roll is that voice.
Yeah, I agree. I have a 12-year-old son, and he's all into skateboarding and stuff, and I think you're sort of right. There's a whole lot of the kids watching TikTok and seeing this and that. And a lot of that has always been like pop or rap based, but I think some of it's coming back around. I will say that, you know, as a proud father, you know, you hear the kids once in a while, they're listening to Rage Against the Machine or, you know, Non-Point or something. You're like, oh, that's cool. And I'll be, hey, wait a minute, is that the OddEven? I was like, man, I made somebody's playlist. That's cool. Or, you know, I was taking them back from a skate park one day, and one of the kids in the back goes, hey, check out this. And somebody had used one of our songs for in a video game. And I was like, well, that's pretty cool. And you know, I'm not a gamer, so you forgive me if I don't have this right, but I guess what they do is they film themselves playing a game, and then they throw a track on top of it. And we were on there with, you know, 1 million views or whatever it was, you know, and I was like, huh, that's really cool. That seems like a way we can make some money. So that works, you know. So it's cool to see that and see that the kids are digging what we're doing somewhat, and it certainly gives you, you know, some encouragement that, as you said, the rock and roll's coming back.
Well, throughout history, anytime there's been a need to resist, you know, the current culture, you know, the counterculture movement, if you will, all the way back from the 60s, rock and roll has always been there to be the voice of a generation that is involved in that. You know, you look at the protests of Vietnam, you look all the way into the 70s, you know, you look at the 80s with the corporate greed and all that, and then the 90s, of course, with the Seattle scene, which was, you know, completely the opposite of what the 80s was always about. There's always something that keeps rolling in rock and roll that defines the youth at that time. And I think for a while it got lost. It became very refined. And I think now, as I've stated and we've talked about here, that, you know, your 12-year-old son, my 16-year-old son, and their friends need something different. They need something that speaks to them right now. And there's nothing better than a power chord in a rock song, or a hook that just, you know, makes you feel something. And I don't know any other thing that does that besides rock and roll.
Yep. No, I'm with you 100%.
You know, you go to a live concert. I mean, heck, you know, you were young once too. Once you go to a live rock and roll show, it's done. It's over. You know, it's like
that's right.
It's in your blood.
Yep. No, 100%.
As far as the new album goes, you mentioned that you have a whole catalog of new material that you have. How does the band work out a song? Like, take us through that process for OddEven.
So it usually starts with a riff that I come up with or that ET comes up with. And then depending on what we do, I mean, sometimes it can be an acoustic guitar riff that I say, hey, look, you know, this is an idea. What do you think about this? And I'll send it to ET, and then he'll go, you know what we could do with that? We could put this bridge part into that. And I think we've almost got something there, because we got the structure, we got the, you know, the intro riff, we got the, you know, the verse chorus thing happening, we got a bridge, or we got some other part in there. So let's talk about maybe recording it and see what it sounds like. And then we'll get together. Normally we'll throw a drum machine on, and we'll kind of try to iron out some parts. You know, if we're starting with the music, and then we'll say, you know, I got this song that's about this, and I'm hearing a melody in the chorus like this, and you know, we'll develop it that way, and then we'll send it to Rob, and he'll take a couple swings at you know, some of his ideas, and you know, then we'll come back and say, okay, now we'll put drum machine on, we'll put bass, we'll put guitar, we'll kind of get it into a full demo stage, and then send it off to our drummer. And, you know, if we think it's to the point where we need some real live drums, you know, it sort of goes around the horn a little bit. And then we take it to the studio most of the time and bang it out and say, you know, what do we need to change here? Does this work? Does this not work? Should we keep it? Do we like it? So on and so forth. So that's sort of the more collaborative way. And then there's also just, hey, I wrote this song and here's how it goes. Are you guys okay with it? And do you have any suggestions as to, you know, improving it? And we'll kick it around. And sometimes the suggestions are great and make the song better. And other times it's like, I don't really like that. And sometimes you scrap the song. Other times you go, wow, that's amazing. God, everyone just added so much to this, and now we're off and running. So, I mean, it completely varies, how we do it, but it normally starts with a riff or a song idea, whether it's, on acoustic guitar or bass or whatever it might be. And then it develops from there.
Are all of you involved in the lyrical process?
I'm not nearly as much as the other guys. I'm more of a melody guy. I'll say, here's what I'm hearing. And it might go da, 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 and I'll make up some words or whatever. And then we'll say, here's the theme. And then do you guys want to run with it? E.T.'s really, really, really good at that stuff. Rob's really good at that. So a lot of times I leave that to them. But when it's flipped, when E.T. comes up with an idea and then I say, hey, look, where are we going with this stuff? I contribute that way. But I'm definitely not as much of a, vocalist as those guys are. I mean, I sing backups in the band, but like E.T.'s could be a front man. I mean, he's got that much of a good voice, and Rob's voice is fantastic too. So a lot of times I try not to go too hard with my melodies because they're so much better than normally. I don't want them to copy what I'm doing. So I try to leave that kind of the slate clean and let them develop off of the ideas that I had. Where E.T. sometimes will bring something that's almost complete and says, hey, I really need your help with this part, or what would you do after this? Because we got to change this somehow. What would you do right here? And then I contribute that way. So, but it normally starts with E.T. and I, starting the song off, developing the song. We give it to Rob, and then we finalize it after that.
And whether it's the song Dance of the Dead, the title track of the new album, or whether it's Fire in the Sky, which reminds me of the movie back in the 90s about the alien abduction.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned how reflective you guys are in the song process, in the lyrical process, and, questioning things and going as deep as you can. When you are writing a melody and you are writing the music, do you try to mirror that subject with more of an atmospheric tone?
I mean, it kind of depends what it is. When we're looking at the new records, for example, like St. James said, it's funny. I mean, the way that was developed, I came up with kind of a slinky sort of James Addiction bass sound, bass riff, and I threw distortion on it. And really, I was just calling it St. James said almost because it just sounded like James Addiction. And then, if you listen to the song, we turned it into sort of, the songs, the whole record sort of has a theme about, as I mentioned before, are we alone? What's next? The afterlife. And St. James is almost like this sort of evil force, this temptress, as it would be, is pulling you in a different direction. And, I came up with that chorus, sink like a stone, like she's going to drown you or pull you away from things. And as you're trying to progress and move forward and find out what's next, whether it's on this earth or somewhere else, look out for the things that can suck you down. So I mean, there's always sort of, as I said, there's sort of a theme to the whole record. The last song, for example, Full Up the Hill, is, Sisyphus, which, if you're into, Greek mythology and all that stuff, I think he evaded death a couple times, and then, it's about pushing a rock up the hill for the rest of his life and all this stuff, and, the situation he got into, and just reflecting on that kind of stuff. And so, I mean, there's various themes, but they all sort of blend together. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And as someone who's writing a melody, and because that's what I've noticed about your music, is it does create an atmosphere, a feel that when you're listening to it. A lot of bands are very riff oriented, where it's like AC/DC's, 3 chords and a big set of balls. Where I think this is, you guys are a lot more surrounding the listener with an atmosphere, with the lyrics and the music. It kind of there's a push and pull between an atmosphere and the lyrical content, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And hey, that's a compliment. It's a good thing. We like that. I mean, I don't know if we did that by design, but it's just kind of the creative juices flowing and what the end product ended up being. You know what I mean?
Well, when you are writing reflective lyrics and you're very reflective in your music, there has to be that tone to get the listener to be there with you, right? To reflect with you and develop their own meaning and develop their own connection with the song. I believe.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and you guys do it very well, very well. As far as what's next for you guys, this album, Dance of the Dead, is out. Obviously, things are starting to open up here at the end of 2021 and beyond. Tours are getting announced for 2022. What is next for you guys?
So we actually were stunned that we got through this tour in September and October with Flaw and Edema. I mean, I got to be honest, like every day I kept expecting the phone call saying, yeah, we're canceling all the shows in California. We're doing this or that. And it was really interesting seeing the differences around the country, whether it's political or whatever you want to put on that. We played, I think, 5 shows in Texas, and there was no such thing as a pandemic ever. We played, half full rooms in the Northeast where people aren't ready to come out and they're not ready to, be involved in a crowd situation. So, we made it through that tour, very successful tour, made lots of new friends and fans and stuff. Dance of the Dead, the single right now is number 8 on Foundations and 20 on Billboard. So we're digging that, getting a lot of airplay and stuff. We just finished the new video, which came out. If you haven't seen it, check it out. That's for Dance of the Dead. And I think over the next couple of months, I have a baby on the way. My wife and I are expecting a baby at the end of the month on the 29th. So obviously we're taking a little bit of a hiatus there. And then talking to the record label, next year we'll probably go back on the road in early spring to support a new single, which will be off the same record. And we'll probably go back and record like right after that. Like I said, we got a full catalog of music that's ready to go. Some of it we've actually played live, and so we're hungry to get in and get that out. But at the same time, we don't want to, overlook what we could get out of the record that we currently have out. So, next things are babies. And then, talk about next tour and then new record.
Well, congratulations to you and your wife on the baby on the way.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, we're super excited right after Thanksgiving. So good stuff.
Well, awesome. The name of the game in rock now is to stay on tour. And that's how bands make money now. That's just the sad reality of where the music business is. Having all that music ready to go, that has to give you guys some comfort that you can stay on the road. Or if you do decide to take a break, you have more material that will bring the fans back. It's hard for a band to tour when they don't have anything new out because people's attention spans are so short and they want the latest and greatest thing. Does that play a part in your decision on what you guys do in 2022?
I think somewhat. I mean, there's certainly going to be a number of factors involved. Family's going to be involved. The record label is going to be involved. And then, what we can do as far as is getting out on the right tour or tours. And then, certainly the recording thing too. I wouldn't want to go out on a tour that's not going to help us out if we have a chance to go back in and make new music and get that out. We were kind of laughing about this. We said, hey, we put out a record each year, with the exception of 2019 when we first got together. Let's try to keep that trend going. And we were talking to a manager of one of the clubs when we were on the road, and he said, "You guys trying to be Kiss?" And I said, "Hey, those guys threw out records like every 6 months." So, I mean, if we could do that, that'd be great. I think that, realistically, if we could do it every year to year and a half, that's a good thing. But yeah, I mean, that certainly keeps you motivated. You just gotta balance everything. And, I always say, somebody says, what's it going to take for you to go one way or the other? And I'm like, there's a lot of different factors. I mean, if Guns N' Roses management calls us up and says, you guys are going on tour with them, then things change. If if something else, presents itself, then we'll go in that direction. If we get the opportunity to work with, who knows, different musicians or a different producer or, whatever. So you never know what's coming. But certainly you got to balance everything and we'll see what happens. But the loose plan right now is figure out what we're going to do with the next single, get out there, tour again, and then, try to record by the end of 2022.
A lot of bands I've spoken to are releasing 2 EPs next year. They're releasing one at the beginning of the year and then one in the middle, just to keep that flow going instead of just releasing one album, kind of breaking it up. I guess it just depends on the philosophy you have as a band and what you want to do and what you think's best. I don't think any decision is wrong. I think there's justification for both. But it's interesting to see how bands are approaching things now that, we are coming out of this pandemic, hopefully, fingers crossed. And, people are starting to get out and tour again. Myself, I can only speak about it. I've been to 15, 16 shows since June, which is great because I love live music. And the crowds are slowly coming back. Those first few shows, like in June, were not as crowded as they are now. So I think people are getting more comfortable. And I think that will play a part in what bands do and what artists do.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. I don't think there is any right way. Do we put out a single? Do we put out an EP? Do we put out a record? I think it's all about timing and feel and what makes sense. We got 8 tracks on this latest record, and we just did that because they were ready to go. There were some others that maybe weren't ready, and maybe not even in the sort of that same theme. So we did that. The first record was, an EP because that seemed to make sense at the time. If the next record's an EP, great. If it's a single, great. If it's an album, great. We've got tons of material to choose from, and who knows, between now and then, one of us might come up with the best song we've ever done and say, this needs to be a single right now. Let's get it out. But you never know. I don't think there's any right or wrong way to do it. We were just out with Edema, as I mentioned, and, they just put out a single and toured on that single because they were like, this is what's right for us at the time. Flaw they were at their 20th anniversary of one of their biggest records. And so, they were fired up to get on the road and support that. And they were actually waiting for their next full length to come out. So, I don't think there's any right or wrong, answer for that. It's whatever you feel at the time, what makes sense.
I agree. I think each band is their own entity and they know what's best for them. I think, and I like that approach, right? I don't like a cookie cutter approach, what everyone else is doing, because I think that's when bands get in trouble. I think bands just need to know themselves and know what's right for them and move forward accordingly.
Yeah, it's a completely different world. Than it was, 15, 20 years ago. You used to, you almost had to record a whole album and then you would go out and support that album. It's just not like that anymore. You put out a single on Spotify and where it goes. There's nothing wrong with that versus an EP or an album. I don't think there's any right answer nowadays. If you put out a single back in the past, being a rock band, people would be like, what are they doing? You might be able to get away with it sometimes, or somebody would do a cover or something, but everyone's expecting the next album. So, but nowadays it's a little bit different, and like you said, it's kind of whatever feels right and what makes sense for all the parties involved in your craft,
Well, Weed, man, it's been a great conversation. I appreciate you doing this.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Where are you based? I'm sorry, you're in Central Time Zone. So
we're in Chicago.
Chicago. Okay, great. Well, the next time we come through, let's definitely hook up. We'll whether it's at the show or somewhere if we got a day off or wherever it might be. Love to hang out.
Absolutely, man. I do appreciate it.
Cool. Well, thanks so much for having me on.
All right, everybody, that's Weed from the band OddEven. I'm Jay Scott. This is the Hook Rocks, the Ultimate Rock Community Podcast. Stay safe, stay healthy, take care of each other. We'll talk again soon.
cement and blood tonight, like so many times before. Jane in the back of our mind, praise to Eve from the score. Sing like a star, you get no sorrow from me. Sing like a star, you get no makeup for free. Sing like a star, it's for the innocent. That's what Saint Jane said. Here on one cold last night, fury and rage explode.
There's a new way to Sweet Green. Meet Wraps. Handheld, hearty, and made for life on the move. With bold, chef-crafted flavors, fresh ingredients, and over 40 grams of protein, they're built to satisfy without slowing you down. Try Wraps today in the app or at order.sweetgreen.com. Available at all participating locations.
300 Favorite Albums with James Campion.
I don't think there's an album I know better front to back. I learned how to play guitar to a lot of these songs.
If I could pick one record to hand someone and say this is what it feels like to be a woman, it would be this record.
You know, the engineer that was recording the album for us was a novice engineer. He was really the janitor.
The first half of these sessions for the album were totally improvisatory in the sense that they went into the studio and just dealt with whatever happened.
There was space that was left for these listeners to kind of discover it for themselves. That they would say, yeah, my parents listened to it, but I had to build my own relationship to it.
Happiness, good living, peace, love, rock and roll. I just feel like this album is such a wonderful translation of that concept.
People understood they were in a world historical moment, and it felt like it was going to last forever. In fact, the infinite spaces that they explored in The Giant Now is part of what made that explosion so huge.